a little longer than the 8. And we've cut more than any president ever, and we're going to cut a lot more. We have we wanted to do 1 for 2, and we're going to be probably 1 for 10 or 12 by the time we finish. I think we're at about 1 for 8 right now. So we've done some things that are pretty amazing. We have a lot of military areas represented at the table, and those areas are doing very well. They're thriving too, as an example, Alaska. But they're really thriving, and our whole country is thriving. It's thriving like never before. The jobs numbers are incredible, best in 51 years. And I think soon we're going to be able to say historic. If we go a little bit lower, we'll say in the history of our country, the best job numbers. With African Americans, with Asian Americans, and Hispanic Americans, we actually have the best in the history of our country. Best job numbers, best unemployment numbers, and the best employment numbers too. There is a slight difference. More people are working today in the United States than at any time ever in our history. We're almost up to 160 million people. We've never been close. So that's something really good. I think what we'll do is we're going to go around the room quickly and say a few words about the area represented or the state represented. And I'll start off with our great Vice President, Mike Pence, and then we'll go around. Perhaps Governor will start with you. Okay? Good.
Thank you, Mr. President, and it's great to welcome not only members of our cabinet, but really some of the most accomplished governors in the country to the table, people that have been leading in what you have defined as the governor's initiative on regulatory innovation. From the outset of this administration, you committed to revive the American economy. As you said, Mr. President, we cut taxes across the board for working families and businesses large and small. We've fought for free and fair trade with deals that were just announced and headed to the floor of the USMCA next week. Phase 1 on China, the Korea deal. We've worked to expand access to American energy. But it's been the regulatory initiative that you made a priority in this administration early on that's also been driving 7 million jobs created by businesses large and small and that record unemployment rate. But you challenged us to work with governors around the country to make sure that states were also replicating the deregulatory effort that you initiated here at the federal level. And we have gathered here some of the real champions of regulatory relief, people that have been doing it, and the governor-elect from Mississippi, as in his role as lieutenant governor, has been a champion of regulatory reform. And so today really is about how we keep the momentum in the economy by encouraging even a greater partnership on freeing up the American people to create jobs and create wealth and opportunity. And I know they're all grateful for your leadership, Mr. President, but I know how grateful you are for the governors gathered around here and all those that they represent who have been taking the principles you've put into practice here at our nation's capital, putting them into practice at the local and state level to create jobs and opportunities for Americans.
Good. Thank you, Mike, very much. Brett?
Well, Mr. President, following your leadership, my first executive order was the 2 for 1, that
Right.
for every new rule, we get rid of 2. I did pretty well. I exceeded that by 4,000%. We got rid of 82 rules for every new rule we're implementing this year. But the whole effort of what it does of reducing the friction costs, particularly startup and small businesses, and people that have a tougher time.
Right.
Washing away that regulatory friction at both the federal level and the state level is a lot of that job creation. And it's a gift that keeps on giving if you keep being diligent on it.
Right.
Is that atmosphere for people to be successful. The great American story of entrepreneurship only happens if you reduce regulatory friction, and whether it's in licensing, which we're working on, about doing away with licensing requirements and making it to where military spouses don't have to go over a hurdle when they transfer from one state to another, or whether it's just the rules to start. And then when you get done, you got to make sure that it doesn't build back up. So
Right.
we look forward to continuing to work with your administration on this.
Great job. Thank you very much, Brett. Pete?
Well, Mr. President, thank you again for leading on the regulatory reform. It's really a key thing, especially things when you get rid of job-killing things like the waters of the U.S.,
Right.
what you've been doing on occupational licensing reform. That's a big thing we've been working on in Nebraska as well. And it just impacts so many people's lives when you do that. So, for example, we have a woman who wanted to open up her own hair braiding business in her home, but because of the rules and regulations in Nebraska, she would have had to have 2,100 hours of licensing, or classrooms to be able to get that license.
It's a long time.
And now, maybe I don't get the whole hair braiding thing, but nobody's health or safety is put at risk by bad hair braid. And so one of the things we did is we got rid of that requirement so she wouldn't have to have that license, so she could open up her own business
Right.
and be able to help add jobs to the economy. And that's one of the things that your administration supported. So thank you very much for that. We really appreciate it. And we're continuing. I signed an executive order freezing all regulatory rulemaking until the regulations had been reviewed. We were able, for example, to cut the amount of regulation by 59%, our Department of Environment and Energy. We're working with your Federal Highway Administration, so we're taking over the NEPA reviews. And that's going to allow us to be able to get those environmental reviews done faster, still with your oversight. But we're one of 8 states that's done that. I'd love to say we're the smallest state, but Alaska actually has that distinction as being the smallest state doing that. But that's an example of how we're doing it. And then just process improvement, trying to make sure that we're doing a good job of getting these things turned around quickly. We've saved about 300 hours of our teammates' time, but what it's allowed us to do is be able to turn around permits in a third the time it was taking before. So all this is really helping to, again, get rid of that friction that Brad was talking about so that people, average Americans, can get about their lives and go about creating the prosperity that we've experienced under your administration.
Any word on the pipeline permits?
So actually, TC Energy right now is going through getting the easements for all the landholders that they hadn't come to an agreement with yet. And of course, we're still waiting on the lawsuit in Montana. But I expect that there's going to be more action on that next year.
All right. Thank you very much, Pete. Please, thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to thank you. It is an honor to be here today, Mr. President and Mr. Vice President. I don't know if anybody or everybody's all familiar where I'm from. I'm from the Southern Ute Indian Reservation, the southwest part of Colorado. We just take a lot of pride in our culture and our heritage. What we have, we'd like to set an example for Indian country. So,
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President, thank you very much for what you're doing, and I want you to know that what you're doing not only makes a difference in New Mexico, which we appreciate, I know from earlier conversations it makes a difference all over the nation.
Right.
New Mexico lives and breathes oil and gas. We're your 3rd largest oil producer, 6th largest natural gas producer. In the last 2 years, we have $2 billion of surplus revenue to the state because of this industry. It's been amazing. God willing, we'll have $174 billion of capital invested in this industry over the next couple of years. We have a lot of opportunities.
So what's going to happen when they want to shut you down?
Well, we're banking on you, Mr. President.
You better bank on me. You're my friend, Jim. You have no choice.
It's a great honor to know that we have that backstop for what we're trying to do. And I can tell you that there's a whole bunch of folks out there that understand the risk associated with the oil and gas business. What they have trouble with is the risk associated with the politics.
Right.
And what you're doing is removing that risk, allowing us to deploy capital and make a lot of money for the nation, for our country, for our state and our city. We're growing unbelievably. The Permian and the Delaware are just prolific. And recently, I had dinner with a lady that's over the lower 48 for a major company. She told me that only about 10% of those reserves currently are being tapped with technology. So you can just imagine what's in front of us with the little entrepreneurship. So,
And we're doing well out there, I understand.
yeah, it's pretty nice right now. We appreciate it. Thank you very much.
That's good. Thank you very much, Jim. Please. Asa.
Mr. President, first of all, congratulations on both USMCA, but also the first phase of China trade That is, as you know, very important to my farmers in Arkansas, but also we're a global export in a lot of different areas, and so that trade is very important to us. Congratulations to you. That's keep at it. And then secondly, thanks for your leadership on regulatory reform. The fact that you and the Vice President has taken a leadership role, and it makes it easier whenever it comes to getting General Assembly legislative support. The public becomes more aware of this. And so we've made it a priority. It does impact the economy when we can reduce the burden of regulations and delays. Just in the air permitting, which is required, of course, for manufacturing facility, we have reduced the wait time for an air permit by 600 days. Now, that's just startling to think that there would be that kind of a backlog, but that's a kind of process improvement that helps industry either get a yes or a no more quickly. And then we've taken on, of course, the licensure reform to help those that are coming into the state, and your leadership on that has been very important. So thank you.
You've done a great job. Great job.
Well, Mr. President, as you know, just a little more than a week ago, we had this just extraordinary jobs report yet again. The market watchers, the experts were saying we'd add about 180,000 jobs, which is a good number. And we just blew that out of the water with 266,000 additional jobs, and then adding 41 for September and October. Just another great month. And but as the Vice President said, we have to maintain that momentum. We can't rest content with what's going on right now. We need to continue to look for ways to improve the economy. USMCA is something that you and the Vice President and others have been championing as part of that solution for a long time. But dereg is such a good issue for you and the Vice President, others to be bringing out to the states. The jobs market that we're experiencing, it didn't just come about. There are reasons for it. And deregulation, as you've led it, is one of the prime reasons. The states now can be examples of leadership as well. And as Governor Hutchinson mentioned, occupational licensing, these requirements that you have a specialized license that varies from state to state. We're very concerned about military spouses. The soldier moves from state to state, and the spouse comes along. Military spouses move from state to state 7 times as much as average Americans. So this is a real burden on them. It's a burden on their families who are already sacrificing so much. And so we've been working with the states and others, and with the Second Lady as well, in trying to address that problem.
Very good. Thank you very much. And I have to say, Governor-elect Tate Reeves, we spent a couple of days with you, and Governor-elect of a wonderful state, Mississippi, and he won, and he won easily. It was a tough race. It was a tight race, and people were watching it closely, and when he won easily, they don't cover it. Why is that? They didn't mention a thing, but that's okay. They know in your state, but you're going to do a fantastic job, and we appreciate you being here, Tate. Congratulations. That was a great race. You really ran a great one. It was pretty even, and he won by 7, and won by a lot. And we appreciate you being here. Go ahead, please.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. And as a good mutual friend of ours says, these guys behind us don't ever cover airplanes that land safely. But the reality is that, and Secretary Scalia said this, which I think is very important, these job numbers, these lowest unemployment rate in Mississippi's history and America's history, the highest employment rate. We actually have 88,000 more people working in Mississippi today than was working 8 years ago. And what's important to note is these things don't just happen. It's not just happenstance. It's the fact that good policies work. They work for Mississippi's economy, and they work for America's economy. And so I just want to thank you very much for your leadership on regulatory reform, your leadership on cutting taxes, your leadership on lowering regulations, your leadership on the trade deals. It's making a difference in my state, and it's making a difference across the country. And thank you, and to the Vice President, for everything that you're doing. I look forward to working with you for the next 4 years.
Good job, Tate.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Russ, you want to say something?
Yeah, I just want to build on the momentum of where we are. So in the first 3 years, the President has been able to lower regulatory costs by $50 million over 3 years. We're going to double that in the year 2020. What that looks like is about $220 billion savings to the economy per year. So substantial growth from deregulatory initiatives. That's about $3,100 per family that's going to benefit when we're all said and done, when the president and the vice president are all said and done, of real money in household pockets. That looks like about 3 mortgage payments. That's about the size of a family's entire gas bill for the year. So this is real money, real benefit, and it's only just begun.
Good. Thank you very much. Eric?
Well, let me pile on the praise and tell you why it's so easy to do so in terms of a few Indiana indicators. When the vice president handed me the keys in Indiana, we were heading in the right direction, humming along. But since that period of time, our budget committee just threw out our revenue numbers for the first 5 months of the year. We're $200 million plus above where it was projected to be. We've got about 13.9% in our cash reserves, about $2.29 billion in cash reserves. We've got more people working, just like in Mississippi, than ever before in our state's history. We've tripled the foreign direct investment in the last 3 years. And so we are moving in the right direction. And it's because of, as good as it was 3 years ago, it is great right now because of this partnership and because the tax and the regulatory environments work.
Big difference.
Yeah, huge. It is the difference.
Great job you're doing. Thank you very much. David?
Well, sir, we manage a lot of land. Some of that land is Indian land that we manage with the tribes. And so today, Chairman Sage and I began a process with the rulemaking that will allow them to better define how they want to have their land managed, and then we'll approve a single permit that then they can manage the land going forward. So it's really exciting. Interior has been a leader in the deregulation effort. We've issued the second most deregulatory number of regulations, and we've really punched above our weight. Our permitting times are down, and revenue for oil and gas is nearly double from where it was when the president took over.
That's great. Thank you very much, David. Please, David, go ahead.
Mr. President, it's a pleasure to be here. I want to thank you for all the things that you're doing, because I don't think what people realize is the numbers don't lie. The numbers don't lie when you're talking about unemployment, investment, et cetera. And what you're doing for the country is obviously helping Alaska tremendously. Kind of far away, tucked up there in the north. But we now have record unemployment in Alaska. Our GDP is up now 2 quarters in a row. Personal income is up higher than it's been in 10 years. More personal wealth is being created in Alaska. I also want to do a shout out for the troops. I don't know if folks know this, but whenever the president flies over to Asia, he lands in Alaska, he refuels, but unlike some others in the past, he gets out of the plane and he goes and he meets the troops. And they talk about it all the time. And I get an opportunity to talk to the president, and it's not just a BS session, but it's about what can we do to help Alaska? What's happening in your state? What do we need to work with? And I would say, Mr. President, and I'm being honest, I can't think of a president that's helped Alaska more than you have with trying to deregulate a number of the projects that we've been working on, helping us gain a leg up again to be one of the top energy producing states in the country. And I just want to thank you. And in terms of regulation, in terms of helping the military spouses, we're doing our part. We're looking at 239 different regulations to either modify or roll back in over 100 professions. We have a large indigenous population in the state of Alaska. About 15% of our people are Alaska Natives. And your work on working on missing indigenous women, your work on public safety, your work on opiates. Again, the numbers don't lie. You're doing a tremendous job, and I want to thank you on behalf of the people of Alaska, because what you're doing is helping us tremendously as well.
And now logging, we did a big thing on
Absolutely.
logging. And we
Strongest
did a
national
very big thing on NWAR, which is potentially the biggest in the world. We'll see what it is ultimately, but it's potentially the biggest site in the world, so we'll be very interested to see how that turns out. Great job. Thank you very much. Anybody else? Would anybody like to say? Would you like to say something? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thanks, sir.
First of all, I think we've heard some people say congratulations on the USMCA. I'd like to congratulate you too, but more importantly, I'd like to thank you for keeping your promises to the people of this country, that when you said you would renegotiate NAFTA, you did so, and we appreciate the follow-through. Ohio is doing great right now. Our employment numbers are good. We're running a surplus as well. But we're also following your lead on regulatory reform. So in the state budget that Governor DeWine signed this past summer, we adopted the 1-in, 2-out rule. We actually passed legislation in the last week related to military spouses so that they can get reciprocity and get working quicker. And we have new legislation that was just introduced, similar to what has happened in Arizona, that would, for many areas of occupational licensure, grant reciprocity from other states.
And you have a lot of car company expansions, and you're doing really good.
We've had some very good news in Lordstown in the last few weeks.
I know that. I know. I've been pushing it very hard. That's good. Christy?
Yes, Mr. President. First of all, thank you for making your senior staff available to us today. We sat down for an hour and a half, and it was just really nice to have a give and take and really hear from them some of the details of things that we can dig further into, things that you're doing that maybe we won't have time to discuss right here. But also on behalf of South Dakota, thank you for the trade agreements. We have had the largest natural disaster in our state's history this year. We have more unplanted acres than any other state in the nation, and we've been devastated. So I've been tightening our belt, but these trade agreements on a tough year where farmers are struggling, to have that good news come right before Christmas really did help them quite a bit. And you never quit, which I love that you did it till you got it done and you won, and by turn we get to win because we're going to get to keep our family farms and we're going to get to keep South Dakota wonderful, and so I appreciate that.
It's a great place, and you also are going to have a very exciting 4th of July.
We are. We're going to have fireworks, and I'm hoping
For many years
you
to
will
fire.
come at Mount
Well,
Rushmore.
we're going to think about it. Mount Rushmore.
Yeah.
They ended the fireworks how many years ago? A long time.
Gosh, it was at least 10 years ago.
Nobody
So-
knows why, but you just couldn't have it, and now you're going to have fireworks. And the governor called, and she said, "You got to do me a favor, right?" And we worked it out, and we got it done, and you're going to have fireworks. And I appreciate what you said on the trade deals. They're incredible deals, and they're big, and they're big. And every once in a while, you hear a critic. There has never been deals like this made. But you have some globalists, they want us to lose money. Sometimes you have a globalist get on, I watch it. Who cares about the United States? Let's lose money. I'm the opposite. When I have deficits, I don't like deficits. You have some people that don't mind deficits. I don't like factories closing and plants closing in this country, going to another country, taking our jobs. So I've never really been one to want to put up with it even. I've been watching it. It's probably one of the reasons I'm president. I've watched that for so many years where your factories and your plants all over, whether it's Indiana or any other state. Even you, Asa, right? Every once in a while they'd close one over there, but the fact is, I would watch as they close plants. Everybody gets fired. They move to Mexico or some other place, including China. And in China, they don't move. They just buy the product. And some people are happy, but no, not me. We keep our jobs. They're moving back. The agreement's very tough. The USMCA is very, very tough. It's very hard to move economically. It makes it really prohibitive to get out. That was very important to me. But no, I'm not a globalist. I love this country, and we're going to take care of our country. The deal with China is a massive deal from a manufacturing standpoint. But the farmers, I guess, maybe will be the biggest beneficiary of all. You see that already. Yes. And China's already started to buy. I told them 4 or 5 weeks ago it looked like we were going to get to a deal. I said, start buying now. You got to start buying now, and they did. And we're doing a lot of business with the farmers in China. And so the deal will be finalized over the next couple of weeks. It's actually translation is the biggest thing. The deal is finished, but the translation is very important. I said, make sure you have the right translators because you can lose a lot with bad translation. So we're working on getting that done, but it's going to be I think you already see it. I think most of you see that now with China, right? They've already come in and they're buying very big. So anyway, we have a tremendously successful country. I think economically it's the most successful it's ever been. Our military is totally rebuilt. Our vets are being taken care of. We have choice and we have accountability. People don't talk about accountability. We had a situation in Arizona where you couldn't fire people. They did horrible things and you couldn't fire them. Now you can fire them. And it took 55 years they've been trying to get that approved. and they couldn't, and we got it approved. That means that people are bad, they don't treat our vets well, they don't treat them with respect, they get fired. That's the way it is. And more than 8,000 people have been let go that were not good for us, were not good for the vets, and they've been trying to do this for decades, and they couldn't get it. So we got accountability done. We have choice done. Choice is a big deal. From your standpoint, it's big. Most of you, all of you have big vet areas, everyone in this room. But now you can tell somebody if he's got to wait 2 weeks to see a doctor, or 4 weeks, or 9 weeks in some cases. It's the craziest thing. You go right outside, you see a doctor, a local doctor, you pick the doctor, we pay the bill, and they're better. We've had cases where they had to wait so long, they were just not very sick, pretty routine stuff. They end up terminally ill because they couldn't get to see a doctor. So we finally got choice done. And they've been trying that one for 44 years. For 44 years they've been trying to get choice done, and we got it done. So the vets are very happy with us. Big on Second Amendment. There's a big Second Amendment group. I think for the most part I can say that. I don't think anybody's going to raise their hand and fight me on that one, Jim. But there's a big Second Amendment room. These governors, every one of them. And we're very strong on our Second Amendment. So our country is doing fantastically well. Thank you all very much. Thank you very much.
President, are you concerned about North Korea at all right now, the developments?
We're watching it. We'll see. I'd be disappointed if something would be in the works. And if it is, we'll take care of it. But we'll see. We're watching it very closely. We're watching North Korea. We're watching many places, actually, very closely. But North Korea, we are watching very closely.
Mr. President, how much has Giuliani shared with you about his recent trip to Ukraine?
No, not too much. But he's a very great crime fighter. He was probably the greatest crime fighter over the last 50 years. Very smart. He was the best mayor in the history of the city of New York. He's a great person who loves our country, and he does this out of love. Believe me, he does it out of love. He sees what goes on. He sees what's happening. He sees all of the hoax that happens when they talk about impeachment hoax or the Russian collusion delusion. And he sees it, and he's a great gentleman, and he was, again, the greatest mayor in the history of New York, and probably the greatest crime fighter in the last 50 years. He knows what he's doing. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Investigation by your Justice Department. Are you concerned about that?
Thank you very much.
Come on, let's go.
Thanks, guys.
Hola.
28 minutes.
Had a different